Here's something that may not be a surprise to you. Electrification in the Honda is not a new thing. The Honda Insight in the late 90s actually beat the Toyota Prius to the first mass production hybrid car in the world about 7 months before Toyota did. This is the NY1. There's a colon in there, but it's silent. And it's a quirky looking car, and I'm okay with that because Honda have made quirky cars over the years. In fact, if you look at it from this angle, you can't even see the wheels. The charging port, unlike the Honda E, which sat up here, is now here. You press a button to open it, but you've got to slam it down to close it. There's no frunk under here either. But there's a reasonable boot, and there's a reasonable battery, so surely that's going to deliver decent range. It's usable of just over 64 kilowatt hours. Gross size is just over 68. In fact, it's 68.8. Honda say it will do up to 500 kilometers. I fully charged it this morning. It's about 8 degrees. The battery was cold, but it was barely registering 200 kilometers. And in fact, I drove out of my estate and it dropped by 1%. Now, to be fair to the car, as I continued the journey, the battery got a bit warmer. The drops in percentage of state of charge slowed down. It is quite an odd looking thing though. Maybe this is not the best colour for us. I've seen it in a kind of a sky blue, silvery blue. That works well. The alloys, I don't mind them, but they are a pain in the arse to clean because there's so many spokes. But they do provide a very comfortable ride. Underneath the car and underneath the boot is where the batteries sit, but they're really low here. And I do wonder if the way that battery pack sits is just a little bit asking for trouble. Now, this car has received quite a mixed reaction when it comes to reviews. It's beautifully built on the inside because it's a Honda, and the interior is leaps and leaps ahead of an awful lot of the competition when it comes to electric vehicles. It's quite a high car as well. It's not an SUV, but it's not a coupe, it's not a sport. It's not really, it's tall. Handles open like this for rear passengers. That can be problematic if your kids are quite small, and it sits quite high over the arches. The back is controversial. Some people have commented on my social media that the way the Honda is spaced out is just not necessary. The light bar across the back, maybe not necessary. It certainly makes the back of the car more interesting. It would be very bland without it. There's a wiper, there's a spoiler, and a huge glass rear window, which means visibility is actually pretty good. Then you got chrome and black and just different textures going on at the back of the car, which all does the job nicely. There's 2 trim specs that you can get in Ireland. I'll give you the prices of them in just a second because I'd love you to keep watching the video. This is a flexible parcel shelf. Also under this shelf is where you can store your charging cables. You can drop that down if you're not using it, and you can make your boot a little bit deeper, and you can easily drop your seats. They're split in a 70-30 into the back here, which means loading things in should be fairly easy. It's kind of it. As boots go, it's kind of unremarkable. Stepping into the car, you kind of just get in at the same angle as your knees, does that make sense? You're not really climbing up, you're not climbing down. And despite the glass roof, there's still an awful lot of roof height, and there's kind of clips where you can clip in a roof blind. I'm not sure if you've got to buy the one that's in the boot or you get your own one. There is a movable blind for over the driver and passenger. You've got these nice little spots in the car also. One thing that I really don't understand is that should be like that. What's that about? You don't get access to the back. Good height adjustability in the headrest, and the floor space is flat, so there's decent places to put your feet. You've got 2 USB-C charging pockets and some air vents for the back of your passengers as well. And it feels quite nice and bright. The different colours work well. Drinks holders, very small for some reason. Map holders at the back, or tablet holders. We should probably call them tablet holders these days. They're also there. But Honda, get some blue pills, will you? The NY1, it's not really guilty of anything in terms of being bad so far. It's just satisfactory. This seat sits quite high. I can't get it to sit any lower, and I'm sitting quite high in the seat, and I'm not massively tall. So if you were, that might be a problem. Now, as you look around the cabin, you get my point of how well it's put together. This is a 15-inch screen. It's massive. I don't really know why it needs to be so big. It's commendable that the climate control, albeit behind the screen, never leaves this part. So it's kind of set up into 3 different parts that will give you your cameras, it will give you your nav if needs be, and it'll give you this kind of spaceman that doesn't actually do anything, but he waves at you. Do you remember the fish in the Honda E? I liked the fish. They're gone. You can shortcut your cameras with this part on the light stalk. A couple of issues. New phone. Mag case. Out of mag case. Does not want to charge phone. It will do it for a while, and then it stops. Not really sure what the issue is there. But I do like that this is reminding me the way it's looking at the nose of the car and the turn of the wheel, to just give you a great overview of how and where you're parking. Okay, armrests, nothing amazing, although at least it's at a bit of a better angle here. Drinks holders, they're huge, they're very, very deep. This is a tall cup and it nearly disappears. And if you've got tall or even medium coffee cups, the lid's going to catch on the edge. I'm surprised at you, Honda, for that. Just 3 options for drive, D, neutral, reverse, and park. So technically 4. And there's 2, actually. There's a USB A and C down here. But this stuff is all really good. The steering wheel feels lovely. It's got a heated steering wheel option, heated seats, quirky vents. I'm just getting this car wants to be quirky. The seats are very comfortable. I love the piping. I haven't seen piping in seats in a while, but Honda give you piping. It's black just down the edge there. I mean, I don't know how these cream seats will hold up to repeated use, but they do look good. A little bit short behind the back of your thighs. An extender there would be very nice. State of charge, there you go, 94%, 215 kilometers. And of course you can set it up that it will come on during the night and charge, or come on in the morning to heat it up when you want it to do that. But there's nothing extra, you know, you can't watch videos and stuff on this. Like, we used to have tellies back in the day. I know I'll go way back, but they weren't much bigger than that. When you're driving this car on motorways, let's start with, you will be getting 27 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. That's at 100, maybe 115 kilometers an hour. The mirrors are not very aerodynamic friendly. They are large, they give you lots of visibility, but the wind kind of howls over them. But apart from that, it is a very comfortable car. It's well dampened, decent over ramps, imperfections on the road. It's able to cope with, you know, multi-patched up roads quite well. You know the ones you get in Ireland. And despite, you know, fairly large wheels, doesn't really let itself be known about that. So it is a very comfortable car to cruise around in. It's just kind of aimed to me as an almost city car, but it hasn't got a city car price. There is regen mode operated by the paddles. Never gives you full 1-pedal driving. Now I've reset the trip. I've done all the things that I could try and do to see, according to my driving style, what sort of efficiency is the car providing. And yeah, there were occasions when it was around sort of 17, 18, but that was really very close to home driving, very slow driving, just calm, you know. Now, I will say this, the range when I left my house was 214 kilometers. I've driven a lot more than that, and the range is saying 212. Now, I get that these are guessometers and all that stuff, but guess higher, because if you'd spent the money on this car and you're looking down, you're staring down the barrel of quite a nice instrument screen, I will say that, and 200 is looking at you, you'd be really annoyed, you know. What does stand out, Honda are famous for making cars that handle so well. And yes, this is a higher up car. Don't call it an electric HRV. It's not. It's a separate car. But it just drives like most electric cars. There's nothing remarkable about it. And I think that is kind of a word that you could use for the majority of the car. It beeps at you for speed limits like every other car in the market these days, except the screen is just so complicated to use to get to that turn off the beep. I gave up trying to find it. But I think most people buy cars based on price, and that's where the NY1 is fighting a losing battle. Here's more of what I mean on that. When you're charging the car, little blue display here, just swipe like Knight Rider. I like that. Charging speed is 78 kilowatts on DC charging. Honda have said they've deliberately done that to actually have a charging curve that is reliable, rather than say, oh, this car will do 130 kilowatt DC, but like, yeah, for 6 minutes if it has 22% state of charge battery. So they're saying you can rely on that charging speed far more than some of their competitors. It is unusual looking. It's very nice on the inside, but there's a problem. Honda's cars, by today's standards, are still too expensive. The new Honda Civic that I reviewed, and it's up there and it's a cracking car, is 50,000 euro. And this car has two trim options. One is 56 and the other is 58,000 euro, excluding delivery charges. And that is just too expensive. You can buy an ID4, which is bigger than this car, and will go further for a lot less than that. And no matter how good the interior is, how poor the range is, let's be honest here, Honda will not sell many of this car if the price stays at that price. Maybe they don't want to. Maybe you're in the camp of, why didn't they just make the Honda E with a bigger battery? Because that car has now been discontinued, which is a shame. There's so much focus on electric cars and prices and price drops at the moment. It is the wrong time to be trying to sell what is a family hatch, really, for almost 60,000 euro. It's going to need a bit of a shave, Honda. And the other thing is, the battery, whatever's going on with the inefficiency of it, it's 8 degrees, it's mid-March, but 200 kilometers is just not good enough. And if you took this car into a motorway and you drove at 120 kilometers an hour from Dublin to Cork, I'm not sure if you'd get 150 kilometers out of it. And that's shocking for the price. So sort out those two things and then maybe we can talk. Let me know your thoughts on this new and kind of first full electric vehicle in this size anyway, from Honda. And I'll talk to you in the next one.